Alright guys, I've been promising this video on cooking some outdoor meals with backpacking gear and stuff for a while, so we're going to go ahead and get cracking. Gonna do a breakfast meal with hash browns, sausage, and eggs. And I kind of got I have my dehydrated hash browns already soaking. If I was in the field, I would just do this in a Ziploc bag like it is and just lay it up against a rock or something like that. Or I would do it in my coffee cup. I've already made a cup of coffee here. Didn't need to go over all that on camera. We're gonna go ahead and get started. I'm doing this in my backyard, so there's probably going to be some background noise. I may or may not edit it out and just narrate it later. If I don't get enough like exhaust or people driving by in their cars or dogs barking, I'll probably leave it as is. We'll see. Anyway, let's get cracking. Got our eggs here. We're going to move those out of the way over here. And then everything kind of fits in this green bag here. There'll probably be a few edits along the way, but I'll try and keep this as straight up as possible. That way those of you that like watching all this stuff and seeing all the details will get a chance to see it all. Move this out of the way. These are some pins for, this is a windscreen and so forth. We don't need that today. It's a little bit chilly, a little bit of a wind going through here in a mountain morning here, still in May. But we should be okay. I like using this aluminum thing here as a base for the stove because this locks in there if I do it right. You can see the wind's kicking up a little bit, and then we put in our little sticks here. And this makes sure that the stove is at the right depth. I'm probably doing this wrong. There we go. That one goes like that, and this one goes in here like this. You don't have to use a little wood burner stove like this. I like it because it gives me the option to burn wood if I'm out in the woods and I run out of fuel or whatever else. But we're going to be running alcohol today. So that's the simmer ring. This is the actual lid. You don't want to stick that on there when it's hot. You'll burn out and smoke out that O-ring. Put this over here. We're going to go ahead and fill this up with fuel. All right, now what you do is this is the Trangia. Again, there's a number of different kinds you can get, but that's the one we're going to use. That's one I like the most. That way you can reseal it and so forth. You want to go ahead and put a little bit of fuel on the outside there, so it'll jumpstart the whole priming process. And then we're just going to take and throw a spark on here. There you go. Now that's going. Give that about a minute or so to bloom. But we can go ahead and get cracking anyway. Put this over here. That's my cookware. Need a sip of this coffee. Nothing tastes as good on a mountain morning than hot coffee. Or as hot coffee, I should say. This is our plate. Put this out of the way. Okay. And we got a couple minutes left on those hash browns. You want to let those rehydrate for about 10 minutes or so. That way it kind of fully takes in the water and they'll cook a lot better. There we go. That's rocking and rolling. Now the other thing about this particular stove and everything combination is that puts you right about 1 inch. The head spacing you want is about 1 inch from the top of your stove to, wow, that is hot, to the bottom of your pan. That gives you the best kind of air circulation and everything else to get the best flame and everything else out of cooking this thing. So we're going to go ahead and put that on there. And then, there we go, that's good. We're going to go ahead and drain. This is a little tricky sometimes. Need to go ahead and add some oil. This is an olive oil container I got from the store. I've replaced it with, it's crappy cheap olive oil. I replaced it with avocado oil, which I like much better for cooking. And put that there. Now we're going to go ahead and drain the water off of these. You could also punch a hole in the side of the bag, but whatever. You want to squeeze all the water out of there possible. It's best to rehydrate these with warm water when you can. They'll rehydrate a lot better than cold, but ultimately it doesn't really matter. If you got to use cold, just let it sit for a little while longer. This is a pretty big portion of hash browns, maybe a little bigger than I need to have in here, but oh well. I don't care, I'm hungry, and this is what I had handy in my gear. And this is the first time I've done this since last season, so I'm probably going to be a little rusty and make a few mistakes, whatever. I don't really care. That's already, as you can see, by the way that oil is flowing. Pan is heating up nicely. Want to coat that nice and good. I don't usually add a lot of hot or salt and pepper when I'm cooking on the outdoors because most of the food we use is so heavily salted already. There we go. We're nice and coated. Now I'm going to dump this in here. There we go. Okay, we'll come back in a few minutes whenever this is kind of moving along. But as you can see, we got our titanium spork, and this is a non-scratch pan or non-stick pan. So you want to make sure you use something that's not going to scratch it all up and ruin it. Now, when you want to get this super crispy, you leave it open like this, but given the fact we got a little breeze and it's just getting cracking, we're going to go ahead and put the lid back on here, and that way it'll build up some heat quicker and boil out that water and start the cooking process. All right, we're back in a minute. All right, been about 4 or 5 minutes. Let's go ahead and give these hash browns a stir. What we're going to do is add a little bit more oil, and that's going to help them sizzle up and get that nice crisp that we like on there. You don't got to go crazy, but just add a little bit more, kind of stir that around. As you can see, they're already, there we go, they're cooking up nice. Cook off some of that water that's in there. We're running the stove on high heat, but there's a little bit of a breeze blowing. It's in the 40s right now, maybe 50 degrees, I'm not sure. It was down at 29 last night here in the mountains at 4,200 feet in the hills of Oregon. So we're going to go ahead and get that as much surface area on there as we can, and we'll run it without the lid for just a few minutes and cook off some of that water. That way we get a nice crisp eventually. It won't be as good as doing it on the stove at home. Obviously you can't get the high heat and all the control, but believe me, it's going to be delicious, especially if you're in the outdoors. And here we are about 8-10 minutes in, taking a little bit longer than usual. We got a decent breeze going through here, and I don't really have a kind of a wind block set up or anything, but as you can see, those hash browns are starting to crisp up nicely. Give that about 5 more minutes, and then we're going to go ahead and toss that sausage in there, and this is all going to start coming together nicely. Get that nice and flat so we get maximum exposure to that heat. And we'll be back in a few minutes. Okay, these guys are just about done. As you can see, now here's a trick. When you're almost done, you could do a little bit less, but I happen to love grass-fed butter. So we're going to throw a nice chunk of butter in there, and that butter is going to start to crisp up those hash browns even more. Get them nice and crispy and tasty, just like we like them. Get it all moved in there. And melt that butter. It's going to coat that pan. And then we'll get a real nice crisp. As you can see, it's not that the camera will pick it up or not. Going to start to sizzle in there, and then we will get really nicely done hash browns. Now if you don't like yours crispy, you can save yourself a little bit of time and trouble, but I do, so that's how we do them here. Give that about, I don't know, 2 or 3 minutes, and we'll go ahead and get the sausage ready and throw that in very shortly. This is not going to take long at all now. There we go. Get your butter all mixed in. And then we're going to let it cook without that lid on there so that the rest of that moisture that's in there will go ahead and cook its way out. Okay, now we got our sausage, got that nice and cut. I have the luxury of a paper plate because we're doing this in the backyard. If we were in the woods, we would just do it on a stump or a log or a bandana or whatever. So we're going to go ahead and put that in right there. and that is going to start cooking. That will not take very long at all. Those sausages are actually pre-cooked. All you really got to do is heat them up. We want to get a nice little sear and a char on the outside, though. You can see there's wind starting to pick up. That's okay. The alcohol stove does a great job. In the wind, you're going to be better off with something like one of the pocket rocket type torch stoves, but as long as you have a few minutes, this works just fine. All right, now it all starts coming together. I don't know if you can hear that or not. That sizzle. That's what we want to hear. All right, the sausage and the hash browns are done now. We're going to go ahead and just pick that up. You can see we got a nice sizzle going there. We'll flip that back over to retain the heat. And then we're going to put this here and attempt to not lose everything. As you can see, we got a nice crisp on those hash browns. And you may be thinking that looks a little buttery or greasy for your liking. But here's the thing, whenever you're doing this out on the trail, you're going to want all the energy you can get. And that extra butter is going to give you lots of fat and good slow burn energy. So that is good stuff. Now we are just going to put that right there. Bada bing, bada boom. Try and do this without dumping everything in the grass. Okay. Now we put this over here. That's going to go back there. And now it's time for our eggs. We add just a little bit more oil. And then we're going to go ahead and cap that. There we go. Stove is running nice and warm, or hot I should say. So that oil's going to spread nice and good. This is the part where I'll probably mess it up and splatter the yolk, but oh well. It doesn't matter. Boom. There goes 1, 2, and 3. Okay, I'm going to put that back on there. I try and let it sit down like that, the way it kind of cooks the eggs in a corner, and it keeps it from just spreading out and covering up the whole thing. It makes it a little easier to extract when the time is right. So, just like that. We'll put our lid back on. And this is not going to take too long, so I'll be back in a jiff. Okay, now that the yolk is kind of set, as you can see, what you're going to do is flatten that out, and then we're just going to put a little bit of water in here. What would be like basically, that's it. And you can see that water is starting to boil already. Get it over here, and then we're going to cap that. Then what's going to happen is that water is going to start to boil off and create steam, and that's going to cook those yolks nice and even without frying those eggs up and getting them all crispy and nasty and raggedy around the edges. And this is almost ready. Okay, we should be about done. Yep. Nice and good. I don't like my eggs cooked super. I like a little bit of runny yolk in there, so that's just about perfect. We're going to let that, we'll give that another 20 seconds to let that other yolk go. We're going to start getting ready to eat here. Because I don't know about you, but I'm getting pretty hungry, and this smells stinking delicious. We got dogs starting to pass up and down the house in the backyard here on the street, just dying to get a piece of this. And Bacon's over here going crazy, drooling buckets, so. All right. Oh yeah, that's good. Now we're going to take this off. And you're just going to hold those eggs while we drain off some of that water. May not let me do it safely. There we go. Your eggs back over. Then we're going to snuff out the stove. Move that over there. And take this. Now that's still warm. So what you can do, a little bit of grass in there. What you can do is, if this part of the food got cold while you're doing this, you put it all back in there and put the lid back on, and then we eat out of our plate here. But since this is still, yeah, that's still plenty warm, we're not going to worry about it. We're just going to go ahead and take our eggs. Hear how crunchy that is? That's what we like to hear. Put our eggs right on top of that. Bada bing. Bada boom. Put that there. We got our spork here. Now, if you don't like hot sauce, you can look away, but I love it. So we're going to slap a little bit on there and some for the potatoes as well. And that, folks, is how we do it. All in, that was about 22 minutes or so, give or take, because we had the wind blowing through there. Normally, if I had put up the windscreen and everything else, it would have taken about 15, 18 minutes, which, again, I don't go in the woods to be in a rush or to try and beat time. The whole point, man, that smells really good. The whole point is to enjoy it out there, and this is going to be delicious. So I'm going to let you go, and I'm going to tear into this, and hope you have a great day. Thanks for all your support, folks. Got any questions, feedback, or suggestions, hit us up at info@gearconvoy.com. Stay safe out there, folks. Bacon gets any leftovers.